Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Transformational Talks with Coach BJ. Come on into this live tonight. Welcome, everyone. Come on into this talk tonight. Transformational Talks with Coach BJ. Once you come in, let me know that you are here visiting. Say hello. Say hello if you're visiting. If you're visiting for the first time to one of these live talks, let me know your name and where you're listening from. So come on in. I'm excited to share this information tonight, as always. Let me know that you are here. Welcome this evening. I see some guys are coming on tonight. So go ahead and let me know that you're here. And if not, that's okay too. I'm just glad you're watching and ready to hear this information. Good evening, Mom. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Deborah. Thank you for joining. Ebony, thank you for joining. How are you guys doing tonight? I am so excited to share this information as I do every time I'm on. I love sharing. I love preparing to share this information with you guys because it's just so powerful. So if you feel like this is a good topic that's going to be a blessing to someone, feel free to share it if you feel led to do so. Come on in. Thank you guys for joining. So we're going to be talking tonight about a topic that truly impacts us all at one point or another in our lifetime, for sure. And it's rejection. And so I titled this topic tonight, Is Rejection Really So Bad? And could rejection be the blessing? So we're going to dig a little bit deep tonight on this, and I'm excited to get into this. If you're just joining, go ahead and drop your name and let me know that you're watching. Good evening. So I'm going to go ahead and get started because, as I always say, I value you guys' time. And go ahead and get your journals out because later on I'm going to be providing some points that I would love for you to write down. And even if it doesn't impact you, definitely this can be some pointers that you can give someone else that might be dealing with the same subject. So I would say go ahead and get your paper and pen out as I begin to open up this topic tonight. So again, the fear of rejection is a feeling that actually impacts all areas of our lives. And it starts at an early age, and we're going to really get into, good evening, Haidia. Glad you joined tonight. And so we're going to really get into how it has impacted us in our lives. Because as I said, rejection is something that we have all dealt with and that we can all identify with. And maybe you experience some nerves in situations where you could potentially, be rejected because it's like an automatic, fear that comes on you at the beginning. Good evening, Deidre. Thank you for joining. And, perhaps the fear has become crippling to you. To the point it has affected how you pursue your goals. And I know for me, a lot of times, I've even had the fear of rejection in some areas of my life that I believe that has also prevented me personally from pursuing goals, because it's just that fear of not being good enough and in those areas. So I'm going to share a little bit more about that in a little bit. And so there are a number of underlying issues actually that can cause and that can result of fear. And when it's left untreated, unfortunately, it just becomes worse over time if you just don't really address it and deal with the rejection aspect of it. And one of the people, I would say the types of people that really suffer from this the most are people pleasers. And I know we all know some people pleasers in our lives. And I feel like I have been indirectly a people pleaser because I'm one of those people who, I don't like conflict. I don't like, I just like healthy relationships, loving relationships, happy relationships. So just don't like conflict. So it's just like, and a lot of times that can be a type of behavior that is prone to rejection as well, people pleasers. And, so many people, they struggle with the idea of, someone may not liking them, they struggle with, I wonder if this person really liked me. We always maybe ask ourselves that questions in certain scenarios. So it may not necessarily be relationship wise, but it could be a coworker, it could be your boss. It could be just anyone. You're wondering, I wonder, do they like me? And, a lot of times if you're in that people pleasing spirit and you're afraid of rejection, a lot of times you will go a step further and just do whatever it takes to please a person just to make sure they don't say no to you. And again, that's a danger in that, because again, you don't want to sell yourself short and you don't want to devalue yourself. And a lot of times, if you have a fear of rejection, you can tend to do that. So again, the fear of rejection really prevents people from telling the truth and really being honest with people about, what they want. So let's talk about, where does fear of rejection actually come from? And believe it or not, we were actually born with the fear of rejection, because our brains are actually wired to be a part of a group. We were born to be a part of a connection. So when we see someone being rejected, our natural instinct is to assume that there's something wrong. Like, ooh, that rejection, we always feel compassion, for the person that's being rejected, right? And so it's a natural instinct, because again, our brains are wired to be a part of a group, to be socially connected, to one another. So I'm going to go through a couple of examples. And as I do this, you guys feel free. I'm going to ask you a question later as well, but feel free to put in a chat if you have experienced any of these stages. So I'm going to kind of go through the stages of life, like being young and teenager, and then, coming into an adult, and can, help us really identify and really look at some ways that we have experienced rejection from a young age. So let's say that we're trying out for the soccer team or the football team or cheerleading or something at our local parks, right? A lot of us, we did that. We played sports and was in a lot of athletic activities, and we typically try out, or we may get the call, or we may, a lot of times with little leagues and stuff like that, they may just kind of choose everybody. But you get a little bit, older, there's typically only a certain amount of spots on a team. And so a lot of times at a very young age, you experience not being chosen. So that's the first stage of rejection, is, really at that small age. And then you get into the beauty pageants, right? So, some of the girls, they get into the beauty pageants, and it starts at third runner up. So as third runner up, is the perception of, you were good enough to make it into the top three, but you just didn't make it. Right. And so then you get to the second runner up. Right. And then, you were good enough, but you were just kind of one person away from being the winner. Right. So you're in the top three, I'm not third runner up, but I'm right there in the middle, and I almost made it. Right. So again, it's that sense of, I still didn't make it. And then, of course, you have the crown winner, who is considered the best, right? So again, you establish rejection really early, at an early age. And then you move into the school setting. So many people, in high school were really terrified of being rejected by popular kids, right? Because a lot of, either you wanted to be popular, and you look at them, you think, oh, they got such a great life. So you feared, a lot of people were terrified of being rejected by popular kids, because, it just becomes easy. So you've started this stage of being rejected. So you're like, okay, well, the popular kids won't want me. So, let me get ahead of the game and just self-preserve. So either you shy away, or you put yourself in a way of avoiding the hurt of rejection, because of course you have already experienced it. So a lot of times we don't interact with people, or we shy away to make sure that we don't have to worry about being rejected. So we don't even put ourselves out there. And again, that can be dangerous, because if you start not putting yourself out there at an early age, again, when it comes to, jobs or scholarships and stuff, as you get older, you tend to act in that same manner, where you tend to not put yourself out there, because it's a coping mechanism for you not to be hurt, or for you not to be rejected. So you just say, hey, let me just sit myself to the side so I don't be seen. So therefore, I won't have to worry about knowing if someone is going to choose me or not, or if I'm going to be a part of this group. So you end up self-preserving and just leave yourself out, right? And then you have the education status, right? So then this is like, who has the highest GPA? So then you have the valedictorian, you have the salutatorian, who came right in second. But nobody really failed to think about the people that are in the audience who graduated with honors as well. Their GPA may just not have calculated as high as a salutatorian or valedictorian, but it doesn't mean that they're less than. But again, there's always this ranking that society has put, where it's some competition, right? And there's healthy competition, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. But I just wanted kind of to set the stage of the root cause, and really where rejection come from. And it starts in stages. So what happens is, we're constantly being rejected, But of course, at a young age, we don't know how to deal with it or even to deal with it. It's just kind of like your parents say, it's okay, baby, next time, you can try it the next time, but we don't deal with it. It's just we're rejected and we continue to go through the phases of rejection. So that's in high school. So we get to the college level, right? So we get to college and people experience the fight for the scholarship. Or fight to get into the school they wanted to get into. So the school they wanted to get into, they just didn't cut it. They didn't get chosen. So they may have to settle for a local college or their second best, right? So it's like, why wasn't I chosen, right? And so it can be the academic and the social organizations in college that you might try out for. So it could be the honor society, or it could be the Greek organizations that you desired to be a part of this Greek organization and you weren't chosen, right? So again, it's that level of rejection. So a lot of times, if it starts early enough, a lot of times we just self-preserve and we just won't go out for it because we may say, you know what, they may not choose me anyway in this particular organization. So I'm just not going to worry about it. So we self-preserve. And again, we just don't push ourselves to go out for it because we just say, okay, I won't worry about it. So we just try to save ourselves from the hurt of being rejected. And then we look at our careers. Okay, we are adults and we've moved past the college phase, so I'm giving you these various stages to let you know truly, how much over our life we have went through rejection and we don't really even realize it, right? But it just have piled up and piled up and piled up. And again, it rears its head and it shows up in different ways. So here we are with our careers. We have applied for jobs and, you either don't hear back from the HR person or the recruiter, or sometimes you don't even get the interview at all. You may even get an email or something to say, hey, thank you, but you don't get an interview. So let's say you are lucky and you make it to the interview round. You're like, okay, I'd have made it to the interview. You interview, right? And then you get the dreaded call back that they've chosen someone else, right? So in all of these scenarios, you walk away wondering what's wrong with me. And just think how long you have been thinking about unconsciously, subconsciously, what's wrong with me and why wasn't I chosen, right? Or you could have at an early age started to self-preserve, or you might have waited till you were adult to self-preserve, but at some point you start to self-preserve. And again, you stop pursuing your goals because again, it's just something that's innate in you that you just stop. You stop the rejection before it happens. So you say, you know what, I'm not going to do this because it's not going to happen anyway. So you start telling yourself that, which leads me to my next point. You go into the dreaded negative self-talk, right? And so two issues that I have with negative self-talk as it relates to rejection, right? So the first thing is with negative self-talk, and I'm going to give you an example of, let's say, at an early age in high school or something, you tried out for cheerleading, right? And so you didn't make the team. You went, you rushed and looked at the list or whatever. Your name wasn't on the list. This is guys, when, of course, they wrote lists and told you who was chosen for something, back in the day. So you go run up and you look at the list and you realize that, you know what, man, my name on, I didn't make the team. I didn't make, cheerleading, or I make whatever it is. So, and again, I'm giving an example of cheerleading. So let's say that you overheard someone or someone told you, oh, you didn't make the squad because you were too big. You were too fat. That's why you didn't make the squad, right? And so what we do, we automatically internalize that and we walk away like, man, I need to lose weight. I was too fat and, whatever the case may be. But guess what? Instead of observing or assessing the situation, what you did to yourself was you actually did the latter, because the example that I'm giving you is that there's actually someone that made the team that was actually a larger frame than you were, right? But instead of you assessing the facts about the situation, you just actually took the word of someone, and then we tend to just walk away and we take that in and we internalize it. And then we make that the problem. Here's why I didn't make the squad, because of this. And that could be so far from the truth. So again, the first issue is us not assessing, the situation. And the second issue with negative self-talk is that we begin to just make it up. So let's say we didn't hear anybody say, but we start making up excuses and reasons, to help us validate, again, another coping mechanism to help us validate why we were rejected. Well, I guess I just didn't do good enough or whatever. I guess I'm just not as good as so-and-so, or I'm just not, we begin to just make up stuff. There is no fact base. There is no validation. No one told you this. We just begin to make it up. And the reason we begin to make it up is because it helps us feel better about not being chosen. So we make up these reasons in our head, as to why we were rejected. And again, it's so far from the truth. But again, when we don't take the time to analyze and we go down that cycle of negative self talk, that's what ends up happening, right? So I want to look at the rejection examples I just gave you. So I just took you through pretty much your childhood, youth, and then to adulthood, right? So a lot of times, again, we only look at rejection one way, but I want us to look at the alternative. So it can be a couple of things. So let's look at competition. So as I said earlier, I'm gonna tell you why competition, it can actually be healthy. And competition can be healthy from a standpoint where it will allow us to strive for more, right? And to find our unique self. So it's not about who is the best or saying that that pageant winner was the best or because you didn't make the team, they were better. It's just that you need to find out what is your best, right? What makes you unique. And so our best may look different than someone else's best, right? You can have two people that develop and create the same product, but there's going to be something better about the other, i.e., iPhones and Androids. Everybody, some people are team Androids and some people are team iPhones, right? So when you look at that, right, you have two great products. But again, there could be a better picture quality for Androids. I do know that, right? Because I've had both. So there's better picture quality. And even those who have iPhones can attest to, there's better picture quality with Androids, right? But again, there's something about, iPhones that really appeal to a lot of people as well. So again, it's about the user, right? So you can never just look at one product, I'm giving an example, or one situation and say, you know what, this is better and this is better. No, it's actually better for the person, whoever is using it and what they're using it for. So you can never look at somebody being the best and you're not being the best. It's just not your best, right? And so again, competition can help you to look at how can you strive for more. And if you don't do this and you always constantly looking at other people as your measuring rod, you tend to make other people inferior than you. And that is a dangerous path that you don't want to go down, is looking up to others and you're feeling that you make them inferior, and you don't want to do that because then you're going to be stuck in that same mindset, until you actually deal with it. Now, I'm going to open up the chat and I want to know if you feel comfortable. I don't want you to do anything you don't feel comfortable with. But if you have experienced some type of rejection, and let me know in the chat, like what type of rejection have you dealt with? And is that experience still a trigger for you right now? If you're open to really talk about that, I know I'm going to give it a minute because I really want to know if there's some issues with rejection or some triggers that may come up from you from your past that you're not even aware of that still triggers you, that maybe stops you from pursuing your goals or stop you, or you find a way to self-preserve and maybe not even realizing it. Has anyone experienced that? I'm just going to give it a minute. And if I don't see anything in the chat, then, I'll just keep moving on. Cause like I said, I don't want to, push anybody to talk about anything they maybe feel uncomfortable with putting out there on social media. And so I'll just keep moving forward. So if I see anything pop up, I'll go ahead and, address it then. But again, and even if you don't feel comfortable with talking about, I hope some of the things so far that I've said is really making sense, and hopefully can make you really think about some situations that you've had in the past as it relates to rejection, and really think about, I wonder did that situation or that traumatic situation of rejection, is that still impacting me to this day? Right? So those are some of the things that you may want to just consider and really think about and assess. Is it some of the things that I've experienced in the past? Is it still impacting me today? So now, we want to look at some examples of rejections and why rejections are not so bad. So I'm gonna just do a scenario about, and we've all experienced this, I'm sure. If you haven't, then, great. But I know most people have stories about, a guy or a girl, that they really liked in high school or college, and, they didn't give them the time of day. I mean, just didn't get them the time of day. You thinking like, man, I really like this guy or I really like this girl. And boy, I tell you, they just not giving me the time of day at all. And so let's fast forward to your adulthood. So let's say that you go to a class reunion or you go to homecoming, or someone else, where you run into the same person that you just had such a crush on, right? And you catch up with them and you realize that, boy, I tell you, this person don't have nothing going for themselves. They didn't drop out of school, don't have nothing going for themselves. And you had imagined this whole life with this person, and you realize that, wow, this person is just nothing like nothing like I thought they would turn out to be. So guess what? In this case, the rejection was a blessing, right? So that's one scenario. So let me give you a couple of more. So a position at work, and I'm talking more to adults here. So, the position you desire so badly at work, you apply for this position and it was the perfect fit. You was like, oh my gosh, I got all the skills. This was great. You interviewed for the position and you found out that you didn't get the position. And you really hurt, like, man, I didn't get the position. So fast forward 3 months, the company decided they want to do layoffs. And that same position and at the same department was wiped out during the reorganization. And that would have been the same job you would have been in, and you would have been out of a job. So once again, in this case, the rejection, it was a blessing, right? Because you could have set yourself up to be laid off and not even know it. But you just knew this was for me. But again, all rejection is not bad. It just means that that's not the path, that that's not your destiny that you should go into, right? And so I want to actually give you a personal testimony of mine. So most people know that I worked for Coca-Cola for close to 20 years before I left in 2019 and started my companies. And, about maybe 3 years into working at Coke, I applied for this position. And this position was like a high level position. It was like literally 4 job pay grades higher than what I was making. I was only, like I said, in the company for 3 years. And so it's unheard of for anyone really. It was rare that anyone would jump that many pay grades, because that means that you were jumping 4 levels of experience to get to this position. But I applied for the position. It was a position in living in New Orleans, Louisiana, and it was a sales executive role. And so the team loved me and they had great things to say about me. I got recommendations, and even the actual hiring manager, he actually recommended I apply for the position. So I'm like, how be it? The hiring manager wants me to apply for the position. I applied for the position, you guys, and they flew me out to Dallas, and I interviewed and it just went great. And I came back home because at the time I was stuck between this job, and I knew there was another job that was in Atlanta that I wanted to apply for. But at Coke, one of the rules was that you could not apply for 2 jobs at the same time or really interview. I can't remember what it was, but I couldn't really apply for them at the same time. Um, and so anyway, so I came back home, and then I found out maybe about a week or so later that I didn't get the job. Right. And so this is twofold. So I didn't get a job. And so the hiring manager called me and was like, Bernice, you did a great job. You interviewed well, you knew your stuff, the clients know you, but there was one thing that was separating you from the person that we hired, is that they had bottler experience. And I only had Coca-Cola fountain experience, but I didn't have bottler experience. So with me not having bottler experience, that's what set her apart. She got the job and I didn't. So I was like, okay, so I didn't get a position. So I'm just thinking like, okay, but 2 things happened. So in the meantime, I was able to apply for the other job that I wanted to go for. And I got the interview and I actually got the job. So when I told the hiring manager who didn't hire me what happened, he said, well, you know what? This was just a dress rehearsal for the actual job that God had for you, right? And so that was great. But there was a part 2 to the rejection. Guess what? A year later, Hurricane Katrina hit. And the place I was going to be living in and the area was totally wiped out. A lot of people died. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people, everything, right? And so in this case, once again, the rejection was the blessing, because I would have been living there, working in Louisiana, and the place I was going to be living and working in that area was totally wiped out. So I just looked at it as God saved me from that. So initially, a lot of times, we don't know why it's not meant for us to get something, but again, we just have to go with it. And because I've had so many examples of, when God said no, that it was for my good. Now I'm okay with no. I'm okay with the rejection. And I'm okay with no, because I know no means that that's just not my destiny. That's not where I'm meant to be. So I want to talk about now when we do deal with situations, as I said earlier, you know, as I said earlier, how do we heal from the past of rejection? So I know I asked people to put in the chat, about anything that rejection. So even if you didn't, I want you guys to write these things down in 7 steps. And I actually pulled these from oprahmagazine.com where they talked about, really rejection. So I wanted to really give some points on, really how to heal from the past. So if you have any issues where there was rejection involved, where there was, some things involved, I want to go over just 7 quick steps to talk about that. So the first step is allow yourself time to process your hurt feelings, right? So when you go through rejection, when you go through, or if you're healing from the past, and even if you haven't really thought about rejection, or even if you still have triggers of rejection, take some of these steps down to really assess. And go back and think about some things in your past. Am I still dealing with some triggers of rejection that's not allowing me to pursue my goals or really live the life that God has called me to live, or really live my best life, or really operate in my purpose? Is really rejection causing me to do that, right? So again, allow yourself time to process whatever those feelings are. And I don't care how long ago it was, I don't care how old you are, really assess and look at what could be stopping you from really moving forward in your life, right? So the second thing is heal your bruised ego by listing what makes you great. And the reason why we have this down here is because healing your bruised ego can be, let's say I was just confident and I walked into the interview and I'm like, I know I'm going to get this job. I know I'm going to get it, right? Right. So when my ego was bruised, if my ego was bruised, right, it's just kind of like then in one of those situations where your ego is bruised, or let's say it's a relationship. Oh, you went out on this day. Oh, you knew this was gonna work. You went on a blind date. Oh, I know he gonna like me. I know he gonna call me, or I know she gonna call me. Whatever the case may be, right? So you that confidence, right? And then your ego may be bruised when it doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out, right? So then now I need for you to go in and I need for you to start listing things that what makes you great, right? List what things that make you great. So turn that heel, that bruised ego into something great. Well, you know what? This is what they missed out on, right? Both an employer or a person you was maybe trying to look at connecting with. Here's what they missed out on, and you start listing everything that makes you great, right? So again, heal your bruised ego by listing what makes you great. So the third thing is examine your own role in why you got rejected. Boy, this is a big one because a lot of people don't want to look at the role they play in the rejection, you know? So a lot of times you can, be too cocky, or you could be too forward. You cannot have the ability, the skills, whether it was from an employer or whether you just didn't have what it takes. And so, you need to examine the role that you play in the rejection. And a lot of times we don't want to do that, which leads me to my next point. I don't want you to beat yourself up about the role you played in the rejection, though. You don't want to beat yourself up because that's not going to help either. Because again, it's going to go down that path of negative self-talk, again, which we don't want. So we would just want to make sure that we understand what role we play and how we can do better and be better at the role, that we play, right? So let's look at number 5. Number 5 is resist the toxic pull of negative self-talk. And I'm going to say after a date, especially, right? Because boy, I tell you, if you go on a date and it just don't work out the way you wanted to work out, you sitting there and you thinking, okay, and he kind of quiet or she kind of quiet, and you just kind of like, okay, this just really ain't working out. It just ain't, what I feel it is. And so you thinking like, so you may come home and think like, well, what is it about me? Did I not look good enough? Or, did I not look sexy? Whatever you start telling yourself, don't do that. Resist the toxic pull of negative self-talk just in any situation, even if it comes to rejection of a job, rejection of anything. Do not go down that path of negative self-talk because again, it's going to be an unwinding until you heal from it, until you start to look into it. You're going to go down that dark path and it's not going to be a good thing. So surround yourself with people who make you feel valued. That's another way you can heal from the past rejection. Surround yourself with people who make you feel valued, the ones that give you that, what you're doing great, or that give you that validation that you're looking for. And it's honorable validation. Own it. Own your worth, own your value, and accept it and walk in high in confidence with it, right? So you want to surround yourself with people who love and value you for who you are and what you do in their life. And so the last one on here is try saying thank you. So you want to try saying thank you. And the reason why I said it is because it's like, thank you, on to the next. right? And so this is a way you can bounce back and not really dwell in rejection. You want to be able to bounce back and not let it feed into it. You want to make sure that you are, doing all of those things, right? So those are the 7 steps on how you can deal and heal with the past, right? So the last step I want to talk about is how to approach rejection moving forward, right? So this is what we want to know about rejection and how to move forward. So we have to learn how to assess the rejection right away. So going back to my example about, the cheerleading incident and going back about, not being picked right away, if that person would have just took a look at and assessed the situation, she would have known that, what, there's somebody on there that's actually, bigger than me. So that can't be the reason why I didn't make the team. So it's assessing, right away. Because if you don't assess it right away, then again, you're going to go down that dark path. Again, you're going to automatically walk away and accept whatever someone said, which you don't want to do. So again, check to see if the rejection is valid, right? And again, I'm going to talk about what part you might have played in it, right? You want to also assess that. For example, if it was a rejection due to not getting a role with your company, it could have been because the other person had more experience than you did, right? And my situation, which is what I mentioned, the reason why the lady got the position over me because I came second in her interview when they tallied up and they debriefed, I came in second. But the thing that separated me from her was the fact that she had bottler experience and I didn't. Right. So that's why it was valid that she should have gotten a job because most of the accounts that I would have been managing were going to be bottler accounts. And so I had more experience, like I said, on the fountain side, but not the bottling side. So it was valid, right? That she got the job. So in this particular case, if there's something that you're looking at, and let's just say that when it comes around again, let's say you wanted that position or you want to strive for something, whatever it might be, make sure you have the experience and you can validate your reason for making sure that you're able to get it right, or you have everything that you've covered. Or a lot of times we go into things and we haven't covered all of the requirements it takes to go out for whatever we're going for, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's a job, whether it's a whatever it might be. We haven't met the requirements, and so because we failed to again we need to take ownership of not looking at all the details, then guess what is going to result in us being rejected. But it's not really rejection, it's just more about your preparation. You did not meet the qualification and the requirements. So again, you got to look at the validity in everything in order to make sure that you're not just feeling rejected for no reason. You want to make sure that we understand, every way possible, because again, it's going to take you down the path of devaluing yourself and you're going to experience more heartache. And it's just not worth it based on an isolated situation, because one situation, if you don't deal with it, can turn into multiple situations that's going to take you down a path of darkness. And you don't want that, right? So, again, this approach of moving forward is really critical in any type of rejection that you experience. So looking ahead, hopefully after this talk, you can really see that all rejection is not bad. It's not bad. And it's truly how you interpret the situation, right? That's why you have to take the time to assess. So I would say assessment is the first thing. You have to take the validity of it. Is this true or not? And then again, look at, did I not do everything that I could do, excuse me, in order to make it happen? So let's say you were trying out for a team. Did you do what it takes? Did you do the training before in order to make sure that you did it? Or did you just sit on your laurels and was like, you know what, I'm good, I got this in the bag, and then train for it, right? So again, I'm just giving you examples of what part you could potentially play in it that has nothing to do with rejection. It was just your lack of preparation, right? So we need to really assess and really assess the situation, and we need to look at the validity of it, and again, what part we play in it. So those are the 3 things that I really want you to walk away as it relates to how do you look at rejection moving forward, right? And so again, I would advise you guys to really take a look back over your life and look at the rejection, and look at some of the things that I've talked about tonight to really see how rejection have played a role in, again, you're not pursuing your goals and pursuing your dreams and doing the things that you have something in your past have caused that. And again, it's not too late for you to heal. It's not too late at all for you to heal from that situation. And I always say, for those of us that believe in Jesus Christ, know that rejection or closed doors is more beneficial than we would ever know. For example, my testimony, right? Because I could have been probably dead and gone. I could have been in a worse off situation if I would have gotten that job and moved to Louisiana and would have been wiped out in Hurricane Katrina. So again, I look at that situation. I wanted to give that testimony to really let people know that, again, our rejection is not bad. It can really be for your good. And see, even then, God had a ram in the bush. I got rejected from one job, supposedly, not even rejected. I'm not going to say that. Like I said, she had more experience than I did, but God had the job that he destined for me waiting the very next week. So everything is not always bad. We always have to look at that. And finally, I would love to encourage you, for those of you who have school age kids, teenagers, or even college students, to really either have them to look at this talk, to really see, how this can impact them as they continue to grow up, right? Because we want to really talk to our kids, and we want to really talk to these college age students early on so they can be less impacted than we have. A lot of the stuff that I share on these talks with me is a lot of stuff that I'm learning. Like, I've learned a lot. So I'm always excited when I'm building these talks and, I come up with these topics, and I'm just kind of like, wow, this is really good because, I really see a lot of the stuff that I talk about that has impacted me or have impacted others. And we just really don't even know, a lot of the stuff that has happened really just with us growing up and really not knowing how to deal with it. Our parents didn't know how to deal with it, our grandparents, So a lot of times we didn't have a lot of people in our life to really teach us or to tell us how to deal with a lot of stuff. So now that I'm learning a lot of stuff and in my profession, as a master coach, and I'm really learning a lot of stuff, and I'm, helping my clients, and I'm doing these talks. And so I'm always excited to say, yay, I'm able to really share this. But again, I think rejection is really something so important to really share with the young folks, because I really believe that it's going to make a really big impact on them as they really begin to see it. We want them to see it as an early age. I didn't see this stuff until, adulthood, but I really would love for you guys to really talk to your young people and really tell them about rejection and tell them about these stages so they can be aware. Again, everything is about awareness. We want everybody to be aware about this so they can catch it and be like, let me take a minute to assess this. Let me check the validity of this. Is this true? And did I have a part to play in this? So before we call it rejection, we want to evaluate those three things. And I want you to teach your young people. And even if you don't have kids, if you're part of youth organizations or you impact youth in some kind of way, teachers or whatever, teach them about this early so they can, again, have the awareness. And so, again, they won't have and deal with a lot of the situations of them not pursuing their goals or living out their dreams or again, self-preserving and not going after their dreams or goals because they have a fear of rejection, right? So we want to be able to teach them early about these various things. So that's all I have for tonight. Does anyone have any questions? Good evening, Lisa. I appreciate you joining. I didn't get a chance to greet you early on. So thank you for joining. Does anyone have any questions, anything they want to share before we get off here? I'm going to go ahead and, let you know about our talks that's coming up. We have 2 more for the month. We have Spotlight Tuesdays with Coach BJ again on Tuesday, March 16th at noon. With Ms. Cheryl from Doula Nonprofit Organizations, where she's going to be sharing information about how to start up a nonprofit, or if you have a nonprofit, even in the midst of this pandemic, you can still open up a nonprofit and make a difference. So she's going to really give some great information on there. And then we have our Ask the Expert, Dr. Christina Grange, is going to be coming on Thursday, March 18th at 7:00 p.m. And she's going to be talking about co-parenting as well. That's going to be really a good one as well, co-parenting. And so she's going to come on and talk about that on March 18th as well. So those are the other 2 talks that's going to be for the month of March. As always, I love you guys, and I thank you for your constant support and just coming on here. And for me, it's not really about the support. I just hope and pray that there's something that's said on here that is really can be a blessing to you or your family or anyone that you're connected to. And that's why I just enjoy this. I do this to serve, as I always say, and for no other reason. And as I always say, if there's any topics you want me to discuss that I haven't already discussed in previous talks, you let me know. I will build a talk around something that you are dealing with that you may not otherwise want to talk about. That's what this platform is for. I want to be able to bring either experts on, or I want to even talk about things to you or someone else that may be dealing with something in silence that you wouldn't otherwise want to talk to anyone else about. But you may say, you know what, let me hear what tips that Coach BJ may have to say, or her expert she brings on. Let me hear what they may have to say about this that can maybe help me, in this journey called life, because it's hard out here. Everyone don't trust people. Everyone don't feel comfortable with talking to people. So that's why I really hope, a lot of the things that I talk about and I share, I really hope that it's helping. And I do get feedback that it is helping. And so it just encourages me. And like I said, I'm just so excited. You guys can see me behind the scenes building these talks and preparing. I'm like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's going to be good. Oh, I just love this, and maybe I just love it. But I tell you, it's just, it's such a joy. And I really love, being on here with you guys, and you guys show up, every other week with me, and just, you guys are a blessing. I love seeing your names. I love seeing you on here. And, thank you so much, Lisa, for being here again. Caroline, thanks. I'm glad this topic really resonated with you. And as I said, thank you for watching. I love you guys. And check out my social media, as I always say, underscore, Coach BJ, for my YouTube channel. It has my talks on there, my previous talks on there. It tells you what's coming up. So always, on my Facebook page at The Source of Hope, one on Facebook, the same thing. Has the information on there. I always post, I always do invitations. So you can always find the most up-to-date information there. On my website, coachbj.com or thesourceofhope.com, same site, give you all the information. It has my past talks and information about my company and my business on there as well. So again, I love you guys. Thank you for watching, Deborah. Absolutely. I will continue to let God use me how he pleases. So absolutely, I love it all day, every day. Thank you guys for watching. Love you. Have a blessed evening. Bye.